last Saturday we talked about building self-esteem in children, and during the conversation, my guest, Eniola, said that children's personalities form in utero, i.e., whilst they're still in the womb, and that what a parent does, says, or feels impacts this. This really piqued my curiosity, and so Eniola is back with us today to explain it in greater detail. So without further ado, let's delve right in. But for those who are watching for the first time, I'll just very quickly introduce Eniola. Eniola Shakira Olajobi is the founding president of the Association of Nigerian Educational Psychologists. She has a background in chemistry, guidance counseling, and educational psychology at graduate and postgraduate levels from the University of Lagos. She also has a certification in school leadership and management from Harvard Business School and Harvard Graduate School of Education. With her previous experience spanning over a decade, Eniola has been working with teachers, education policymakers, parents, and students to unleash their enormous potential and direct them towards nation building. She recently published a series of emotional wellness kits for children and teenagers. Welcome again, Eniola.
Good morning, Feran.
It's really cool to have you here again.
It's great to be here again.
So, let's carry on from last Saturday.
Yeah.
And you said the child's personality starts in utero. Explain that, please.
Okay, so basically, I mean, when you do check, you would see that most schools of thought would say that personality emerges just before the adolescent years. But the word there is emerges. And that's when it becomes visible. But when exactly does the formation of personality begin? And then we should ask, what is personality in the first place? You know, that would help us to understand the formulation of personality.
So you just asked my second question. So, yes, okay, what is personality?
Personality basically is what makes up our behavior.
Okay.
And the formulation of personality begins when we're able to observe other people behaving. So basically, we're social beings and we learn by observing. And when you say observe, that's learning. And what then is the definition of learning? You would see that learning is a change in behavior, something that inspires you to do something in a certain way, and is usually as a result of exposure or experience. So when we say exposure, what you see or what you feel as a result of what others around you are doing, and then experience what you do. So we might say that in the womb, a baby isn't doing anything other than being there.
Exactly.
But they can feel. They might not be able to see. I'm not a medical doctor. I don't know at what age they're able to really see something, but they can feel. Because when certain things are happening in the environment, they take in these things. Research has shown that the fetus in the mother's womb is able to hear things. So when they're familiar sounds, like the mother's voice, like a blender that goes on often, or a washing machine sound, any regular sound, the child is able to remember it when they're born. So this means they can hear things going on around them, and they, of course, can feel, especially things like their mother's mood and emotional status. Because when I'm happy as a person, I'll release hormones like dopamine, and this goes, the baby feels it as well. So when a woman is calm and when a pregnant woman is calm and happy, the baby is able to feel it, the environment becomes calm, and this affects the neurodevelopment of the child. The same way if this woman is stressed, upset, or certain things are not going her way and she's quite emotional, she's going to release a different kind of hormone. She's going to be releasing cortisol and the rest of them, and this is going to affect the child differently. So when you see a woman who has a very stressful pregnancy, emotionally stressful pregnancy, you would see that that child is not usually, they're more emotionally responsive, the mood levels, the demeanor, everything is different from when the same woman is pregnant again, but with a different state of mind. Maybe this time around she's calmer because of things happening. And then you'll see siblings with very, very different personalities, even though they had similar environmental and social influences growing up.
Wow. The look on my face is what my parents call, they see me having my eureka moments, because my dad actually called me after on Saturday to say that he understood what you were saying, because these were the things that were happening when my mom was pregnant for me. They had lost a dear friend. and it was an emotionally trying period. And my sister, my brother, and I were very different. So it goes to exactly what you're saying.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow. Okay. So what are the things that we need to do to ensure that we are raising or we're bringing children who are balanced personality-wise into the world?
Okay, so I would say that the first thing is to realize that learning does begin before birth. And this will help us to get more mindful. This will help us. There's some things we can't help. For example, about your mom when she was pregnant, carrying you, she lost a friend. That's not something she could have helped. But what happens when we know that learning begins from conception is it helps us to manage the things happening around us and to know how best to exhibit certain things. And then we also know how much we need to support a child from day one. Because there's some children who come and we know that this child is going to need much more support than this other child because of certain things that happen during pregnancy. Research has shown that some children, even before they're born, are vulnerable to things like depression. Yes. Challenges in childhood like conduct disorder has been strongly linked to traumatic pregnancies. So when a woman has a traumatic pregnancy, maybe because she lost someone or certain things happened in her life, and then this unborn child later grows up to have behavioral problems, misbehaving and all of that, you would realize that this child is, now coming up with situations. And when history is taken and you ask the mother, how was the pregnancy? They tell you things like, oh, I had this challenging pregnancy, or maybe because I had to experience this and that, it was quite traumatic. So there's been a strong link between the mood of mothers when they carried certain pregnancies and the behavior or the emotional responsiveness or emotional stability of these children later in life.
Wow.
Yeah.
You mentioned something called conduct disorder.
Yes.
What is that?
Okay, so that's a situation where a child is constantly misbehaving, doing the very opposite of what is required, not following the rules, and sometimes being aggressive and all of that. A lot of times in this part of the world, we just say, oh, that child is being stubborn or this or that. But there is actually a condition like that.
Wow.
Yeah. And is most times it coexists with a lot of hyperactivity. The child isn't able to settle. This child just seems to be the trouble, the one making the trouble all the time, getting into from one trouble to the other.
How did you begin to understand this? Do you have personal experience of, what you're referencing?
So, as a practicing psychologist, I work with children, and I have seen these things over the years. And I would also say that personally, for my own children, I see that my two most emotional children, they're the ones that I had the stressful pregnancies with. And when I say stressful, I'm talking about emotional stress now, not physical, though there's definitely a link between physical and emotional. But I realized that I have two kids that are quite emotional, and they're teary quickly, and things get to them more than the rest of my kids. And they were the two that I remember vividly that their pregnancies were not exactly smooth. So even for me personally, and then from the people I work with on a daily basis, I see these things happen, and I can relate.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow. What's the role of the father in all of this?
Yes.
Sorry, before you answer that, the reason why I asked that is mothers, you've talked about the mother's emotional states.
Yes.
The father, uncle, because the father has an emotional state.
Definitely, there's a link between, because you see, this child is not growing up in a world of their own. They're taking on the feelings they're getting directly from their mother because they're in her womb. However, the mother's feelings cannot be separated from the father's behavior or reactions. So the father definitely has a lot of role to play. He has to play a very good support role. And even things like the father's voice can be remembered when a child is born. Like, oh, this is if you've watched this movie, 3 Idiots, the part where they would say to this baby, all is well. And then it was a movie, when the child came to life and the child did have some challenges and they started chanting all is well, it just sort of brought back some memories. So even when these things are not coming from the mother, it's still able to influence that child directly. But indirectly, the father has to ensure that he gives the required support. And when two people work together, the synergy brings about a lot more stability. And so what this does for the child is it helps the child to have a stronger foundation. And this will, of course, help emotional stability, the mood levels, the character traits that the child would be picking up as the child comes out into the world. So it's definitely important that fathers should get involved and should be very supportive during pregnancy.
When you say the foundation, it helps with the child's foundation. You're talking about the foundation before birth.
Before birth, yes. Because
so
like
all
I
of
said,
this builds the
it emerges
foundation.
later in life, but something will not emerge if there hasn't been a build-up. So that background that is preparing itself happens before birth, and then it continues after birth, early years. There's something we call 0 to 3. Those are the very critical years. By that stage, it's forming more and more and more. And then by age 6, most psychologists will tell you that a child's personality is formed. But it fully emerges just before adolescent. And then it stabilizes over the adult years. And you see the personality isn't something cast in stone like we all think. Yes, you have your personality and I have mine. But there are certain I wouldn't say changes, but yes, little changes that could happen to our personalities over time. Because, mind you, personality is formulated from observing people's behavior and from engaging with the surroundings, with our environment. So this means that depending on what keeps happening to us, it will keep changing and evolving our personality. I'm not likely going to move from this personality to distinctively a different one, but within the personality type, you would see me evolve, you see me change, you see certain things that were not quite like this are now like this based on the things that we're experiencing as we move on in life.
Okay. I've heard about music and what music does to the fetus. In terms of, I've heard about mothers who play classical music for the fetus in their womb, and this makes the child very intelligent. Is this a myth?
Okay. So back to what I was saying. This isn't a myth. These are things that are research proven because there's a link, physical link, as well as emotional link between a mother and child. So whatever the mother does will release certain kind of chemicals, hormones we call them, that would in turn influence the child and get the child's brain ready for certain things. So when a woman listens to classical music, for example, or even for some people, there's some women that when they're pregnant, they take on challenges like going to learn advanced mathematics or reading skills. Yes, there's some mothers, pregnant women that read to their babies. You would find that such a child will have a higher language development than another child whose mother wasn't reading to him or her. A child whose mother is doing advanced math is likely to be way more intelligent, is likely to have better memory, is likely to have like a thing for names. So all of these things influence what happens with this child when the child finally comes out into the world. Yes, so it is not a myth. It's a research proven thing that when a woman does certain activities during pregnancy, it influences the neurological development of that child, and that of course would affect the brain development too.
Wow.
Because basically the brain is made up of neurons.
Wow. So
Yes.
two things that you mentioned, the hormones and neurons.
Yes.
So ultimately it's the connection between the hormones that are transferred from mother to child and the things the mother does to impact the child's neurological development.
Yes.
Okay, I don't have money. I'm a low-income pregnant woman. I don't have the luxury of classical music, but I want my child to have the very best in life. What do I do?
So you don't necessarily need money to have a smart child. I just think that pregnant women need to be more mindful about the things they do, and they should engage in a lot of positive activities. Like I said, reading. It could be as simple as reading. Everyone.
I don't have time to read. I'm a roadside vendor. I sell akara and agege bread on the side of the road.
Okay, but there are certain things. Okay, so maybe while you're selling, you want to listen to certain kind of information. You want to listen to things that would inspire you, things that will make you think positively. Because, okay, so what you see the average akara seller or agege bread seller doing is complaining. And when we complain, we're ranting. And this is constantly making us moody. And this is going to affect our unborn child, because then the kind of hormones that are being released, so this kind of child is likely to end up being very irritable. So rather than me complaining because I'm talking to my fellow akara sellers and we're all complaining about how bad the economy is and this and that, market no day, and can I take my mind off that? Can I at least, even if I don't have a phone to listen to something, can I envision a positive world? Can I think about how things can get better? Can I think about something that will bring a smile to my face? Because the focal point there is feeling happy and feeling safe. And then the happiness hormone is released. So there's sometimes that it's not really what we have that brings the dopamine. It is that feeling. So if, for example, I want a brand new phone, it's not the brand new phone that gives me the happiness. It's the feeling of getting what I want that gives me that happiness. And that's what makes dopamine come. So this means that even if I can't afford all of the luxuries that I need, if I do think I need luxuries, then I can at least imagine that I have certain things that make me happy, and that will do too.
Wow.
Yes. And I'll tell you about what imagination can do in learning. So a research was done, and it was a woman was being prepared to learn how to play the piano. She envisioned and she imagined using the piano, and then she was taken into the room to actually play it. And she played it better than, not better than someone who had been learning, but better than someone who was trying out for the first time because of what she had done with her imagination. So even this poor akara seller can do something with her imaginations just to help her unborn child.
So your imagination is the key to unlocking your unborn child's awesome personality traits.
Yes.
Wow. Wow. This is like super interesting. It really is. And to just round off, what are if you can give me like 3 to 5 things that you would tell a pregnant woman to begin to practice, what would they be?
The first thing I would say is read. Read every day if you can, even if it's not more than 5 minutes. Read every day.
So read out loud.
Yes, preferably
to your
out loud.
unborn child.
Yes, read out loud. Read stories, And then, of course, watch your mood. Watch the way you react to situations. Don't be too emotional or, try to avoid a lot of, outburst. Yes, emotional outburst. And then do something.
Regulate your emotions.
Yes, regulate your emotions. Thank you. Do something that would challenge you mentally. Do puzzles, do word searches, do things that would make you think. There's this phrase I like. Have you used your brain today? It sounds funny because we think we use our brain every day. But a lot of things we do are on automation.
Autopilot,
yeah, we just do them because we're used to them. So do something that gets you mindful.
Stimulate
like maybe
your brain.
reading something familiar backwards or trying a tongue twister and stuff like that.
Huh.
Yeah.
Huh. So tongue twisters work?
Yes, they do. They do. He helps you to focus better because there's no way you're going to say red lorry, yellow lorry 3 times without paying much more attention than what you would ordinarily have done if you just needed to say something simple.
Wow,
Yeah.
wow. That has been awesome. And yeah, in the time frame we have, we've actually been able to pack quite a lot in. Eniola, thank you so much for changing your schedule around and coming back today. I'm really quite excited. I'm so glad we're able to do this. Thank you so much. So hopefully, I hope we've learned something new, and new mothers out there, pregnant mothers, and everybody knows somebody who's pregnant. Hopefully you'll be able to tell them things they can do to raise personality balanced children, I guess. John, Helen, and myself will very quickly round off the show, so please stay tuned for another few minutes. Thank you so much.